What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Nimbus Cloud Podcast. Joining me today is the one and only Joey from Shenron's Lair, aka Crossworld TCG, aka the man who gives you all the details after every large tournament. How you doing today, brother?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate all the different aliases, too.
Yeah, I feel like every time I have someone on, I have to give a million aliases, just AK until I can't AK anymore.
I love it.
How you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. I can't complain. Just school, YouTubing. How about you? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Regular job too, trying to YouTube this thing. You're our second guest, so thank you for that. Thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure, man.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty, because a lot of people know you in the Dragon Ball community because, as I mentioned, you're one of those people that after every tournament, you find out who topped, you find out about their decks, you connect with them, you get their thoughts and insights, which is very unique and honestly very awesome for the community. But tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Tell us a little about Joey.
So Joey, behind the scenes Crossworld. I'm a fifth-year college student, so those of you guys laughing at me, I appreciate it. But
hey, I was sixth year before I graduated, so
yeah, it's definitely becoming more popular, way more popular to graduate in like 5-6 years. But hopefully finishing up this year. Besides, playing Dragon Ball, I play a lot of League of Legends. I'm very, very noobish at League of Legends though, so don't if you're plat, don't hit me up. But besides that, I love writing. That's gonna be ideally my professional career somewhere in writing, like editing, publishing. That's why I really love doing the Patreon too. It lets me write articles. I feel like I'm way better with written word rather than speaking in videos. Sometimes I talk too fast or I stutter, whatever. But written word I've always been pretty good with. So love comic books. You see the Black Panther shirt on right now.
Yeah.
Huge comic geek. I would love to, write. I'm trying to write some comics too. I'm actually in the process of writing my first comic. So trying to do a lot of things at once.
Nice. Is the comic an OC character, or are you trying to write
Yeah, it's all original content, original IP. Obviously, based off stuff I grew up with, but I grew up with a lot of different genres, like anime, comics. Preacher is one of my favorite books. If you guys have ever read that, it's kind of out there, sci-fi, weird stuff. I love it all.
So who's your favorite comic book hero?
As cliche as it sounds, definitely Spider-Man. Just that nitty-gritty, upcoming, the witty response to everything, but he's a respectful kid, and he's just no matter how much stuff gets down on him, he's always, trying to fight through it, which I love about Spider-Man.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. My favorite's always been Deadpool. Then right up there next to him is Wolverine and Spider-Man, but Deadpool is even before the movies, he's been my guy. Someone that just talks shit and is such a badass. It's hard to really argue with.
Yeah, he's one of the most fun characters, and my second favorite is definitely Daredevil. Daredevil he has such a sick story, and he's the polar opposite of Spider-Man, even though they work together a lot. This is definitely not a comic podcast, so I won't get too deep into it. But two of my favorite characters for sure.
Yeah, of course. Look, at the end of the day, comic books are so interesting. The same thing with Dragon Ball, which I'm sure probably influenced you in some way. It's there's these things that are about us to help shape who we are as a person, which, that's why it's also important. It's important to know what kind of heroes you like, because, and it's also interesting because it kind of plays into your play style, right? Because you just said yourself, you like to play Spider-Man and Daredevil. To me, your play style, from what I've seen from your videos and everything, is more methodical and kind of thinking before you go and taking those risks, instead of just being a straight up beat down, someone who likes the Hulk or a Thing, you know what I mean? Those heavy characters. So that's why it's interesting.
That pretty much hits the nail on the head, yeah.
Yeah. So aside from writing in comic books, is there anything else you like to do on your free time, or is that?
I've been playing more and more League, which is distracting me from my writing, so that's not great. But I'm trying to get ready for Nationals, so Dragon Ball is taking up a lot of my time right now. I work on the channel and the Patreon basically every single day, even through weekends. So that's most of my time. I go to the gym, I work out at least 5 days a week. I live right next to Boston, so I try and go to Boston as much as I can. I love walking through cities. I'm definitely a city person, so that's some of my stuff I like to do.
So all right, so we kind of spoke a little bit before the podcast, and I was telling you how I go to PAX, right? There's this one place in downtown Boston. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's one of my favorite places to go there. It's this random Asian bar that has karaoke and a dance floor up top.
Crave?
And I think so. Oh, all right. Here's the main characteristic of it. There's a guy that comes around every so often with a bucket of chicken for $1.
That might be Crave. I think I know what you're talking about. I've been there once or twice. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I love that place. But anyway, cool. Well, that's awesome, man. It's very busy, man. Obviously, student and doing all this other stuff. Thank you for having the time to do the content that you do. Just to be honest.
Pleasure, man. I love it. I love doing it for the community. Like, it's work that I really enjoy, which is great, and the community seems to like it. So I mean, it just seems like all pluses from there.
Yeah, and to your point, also helps your portfolio when you go further into your journalism career, which is great.
Yeah, definitely.
So, how long have you been playing card games?
So I've been playing card games for my whole life, like not competitively. Like played Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a very young kid. Never really gave it up, and I used to get crap from my cousins all the time. They're like, "When do you need to grow out of this? Like you're too old to be playing card games." And for some reason, just never grew out of it. And then when I got to college, I moved from Jersey to Boston, which is about like 4 or 5 hours away. And once I got to college, I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh competitively. So that was about 5 years ago. And then 2 years ago, quit Yu-Gi-Oh. Really just couldn't stand the game anymore. It got to a point where it wasn't enjoyable anymore. And then I picked up Dragon Ball and haven't looked back since.
Oh, well, very interesting. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! Obviously the big boy next to Magic and Pokemon, of course. So what drew you to Dragon Ball?
So it was pretty funny. Like I was still in Yu-Gi-Oh! At this point, and me and my friend went to our local hobby shop, and we saw the Dragon Ball packs. And this was like set 2. And a lot of times Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, they just use like other card game cards as field centers, like tokens basically. So we bought the packs just to like see what they look like. And like we fell in love with the card art immediately. The first card I pulled in a pack was the SR Trunks from set 2. I think it's called Constant Hope. I think it's like the 6-drop, triple strike, that whole thing. But the card was super dope looking. So then we were like, okay, we're going to buy structure decks. We're going to learn how to play this game. And from there, like, I learned how to play. My friend was like more of a casual card gamer, so he didn't really come to locals much. But like, I started going to Dragon Ball locals, and I got some of my Yu-Gi-Oh friends into Dragon Ball, and they kind of saw too, like, wow, this game is a lot more skill intensive, a lot more enjoyable. So ever since then, we just kept growing it in the local Boston scene.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. You basically came through and practically made the scene up and flourish. That's pretty amazing. You do more than just do YouTube. You do a lot of stuff for the community.
I try my best, dude. Like, I want this game to pierce the big 3, and I can foresee that happening very soon.
Oh yeah, of course. So with that being said, you said you started in set 2. What was the first leader you played with? Like
first leader I played with. Sorry, what's up?
That you built a deck with.
That I built a deck with. So I got the Soul Striker starter deck, and of course it was your boy Goku. But I really love the untapping energy mechanic. That was super cool to me for some reason. Like when I started the game, like compared to what I know now, I look back on that and I was like, wow, my knowledge of the game was negative, like so negative. And I played the structure deck, and then I started upgrading my Soul Striker deck. I started looking at what was topping because I had a competitive background in Yu-Gi-Oh, so I knew how to I know how to search for competitive things in the game. So I built blue-green Soul Striker, messed around with blue-green Vegeta a little bit. So I had like Broly Vegeta hand control, and then I had like Soul Striker, just like typical blue-green stuff. So and then Soul Striker is what I ended up sticking with until like set 3 came around.
Nice. What made you decide to go off of Soul Striker? What was the card?
You pretty much pegged it on the head. Like, it was my playstyle. Vegeta was much more aggro, with all the crit and whatnot. And Soul Striker was just like, if you ever played Yu-Gi-Oh, it reminded me of Goats, which is like super resource intensive. Like, you just like you have to be the better player, and you have to outgrind your opponent. And those are the kinds of decks that I really enjoy, as opposed to Vegeta. Vegeta was fun, but like I didn't really enjoy just like you have to attack every turn and you have to like play this kind of way. I liked how Soul Striker gave me a lot of options.
Yeah.
And Hidden Awakening Kale was just such a good, such a busted card.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I remember when I started. My first leader I played with was Broly, and Hidden Awakening Kale was just too busted in that deck too. It was like,
Yeah, that card was so cool.
So what was the leader that made you get off of Soul Striker?
Get off of Soul Striker. So I guess when set 3 came around, I started messing with SS3, which was before it was busted. If you go back to the archives of the channel, like I guess 2 years ago now almost, I built a red blue SS3 deck, but it wasn't like the Chain Zeno variant. It was like just like good defensive cards like Topo, combo into play Gohan. and that was really fun. But I really fell in love with the yellow Goku leader. Is a yellow kid Goku. Look at
Mm.
top 10, add any Bulma. So like a tie for my favorite leader definitely is like between Soul Striker and Yellow Kid Goku at that point. So that
Mm.
was cool. I built Yellow Kid Goku veggies after Mecha Frieza got banned,
Yeah.
or I guess errated technically. So that was really cool. Up until that point, those were my two favorite leaders: Soul Striker and Yellow Kid Goku for sure.
Oh, that's pretty tight, man. So with Soul Striker, obviously all these silver bullets, the Borgos, the Raditz, the Kami, the
So
Whis.
sad.
It's so sad. But for whatever reason, there's been a lot more talk recently, especially in the Facebook group, about Soul Striker making a comeback. Do you feel like that's possible?
I don't know, man. Like they announced what their the leaders are gonna revamp, and I'm really sad. I'm actually really surprised too that Soul Striker didn't get picked. Like that's been a fan favorite in the community for so long, and I'm really surprised they didn't get picked. But I mean, I don't know. It's really hard to play a leader like that because of obviously, like you said, Borgos, things like that. It's like you can play answers, but if you have to spend your entire game plan just answering problems, you can't really win the game efficiently. So that kind of sucks. But the closest thing we have to a replacement for that is like the ultimate box of Vegeta leader, the one that like lets you exchange energy from your hand. So
Yeah.
that's really cool, like a kind of experiment to change around with that. But as far as like upgrading Soul Striker, the only thing he could really get, in my opinion, would be a way to gain advantage on Awaken, because like you can untap energy a lot, but the problem with the leader is like you have no hand until you awaken. So that would be the way I would see them improving it. Are they going to do that anytime soon? I don't know. A leader that can draw and manipulate energy can be kind of busted. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into those leaders in a little bit because that's a whole discussion in itself. Because that is like mind blown on the leaders that were chosen.
Right.
So we talked about it. Obviously, you're one of the guys that's really been grinding this YouTube. How did it start for you, man?
So actually, I started playing Dragon Ball when I was living in California, and I know you're a West Coast guy. So I was living in Chico for a year for school,
Nice.
and that was the first local scene that I helped get started. And my first event for the game was the San Jose Regional. I guess it was actually a pre-regional. So I took Mecha Frieza Apes to that event because it was like, it's basically a tier 0 deck. And I got top 32, which was sick. I was like super excited, super hyped up. And like I mentioned before, we were building like really crazy decks, like me and my play group. So we were building like the Kid Goku Veggies. We were building the really bad version of Red Blue SS3. But from that, I was like, dang, I kind of want to start a YouTube channel because the game at that point was so creative. And I feel like we're finally coming back to that point of creativity. So that was what made me want to start doing the YouTube channel. I was like, I have some cool ideas. I can get them out there. Not too many people are doing it right now. So it'd be pretty cool to like get in that scene. And I started from that, and then I started uploading 5 days a week and have not looked back since.
That's awesome, man. Has there been any struggles for you throughout the journey?
Yeah, it's tough. Actually, the summer was kind of rough. And apparently, like, the summer is a downtime for YouTube in general, which I didn't really know. But, like, it was weird. When the summer started, my views all started, like, plummeting a little bit. And I was, like, really discouraged. I was like, wow, like, am I doing something wrong? Like, are people not enjoying the content anymore? And that was really rough to deal with. But then I kind of did some research, saw, like, YouTube kind of struggles in the summer. Because people are doing things, vacationing, this and that. And now, actually, that school started back up, I noticed that it's kind of come back to normal. But besides
awesome.
that, like, struggles, not too much. It's the perfect side job for a student, to be honest, because the hours are flexible. Like, I work when I'm free. It's really, really nice. You don't really start making money until you have a good following for the most part. But I'm a college student, so it's a really great side gig for that kind of deal.
That's cool, man. So, at what point? So, like I mentioned, like your content is unique. Like I said, you go out after these players who win tournaments that are not even streamed. You get their deck profiles, you get their thoughts and opinions on them. At what point were you like, yeah, this is my thing, and this is what I'm gonna run with? Because you really have ran with it.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, man. So a few things. Like, one, there still are, a lot of YouTube content creators for Yu-Gi-Oh! That I really, really like their content. They do competitive analysis. I kind of think there's like two different types of channels out there. There's more casual channels like super players and what's it, Mafubajar. They do a lot of openings and like they're more for. I feel like you go watch them for fun most of the time, which is super cool. Like we definitely need that because they have the biggest followings. So we need that to attract people to the game. But once people get into the competitive scene, I feel like you have me, Android, people like that who do a lot more of the competitive analysis, which, I'm a competitive player, so that kind of just falls right into my niche. And as far as like the reporting on tournaments and getting player interviews, I kind of treat it like real life journalism in a sense. Like I think journalism is very important when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, just reporting on, what's going on. So I really enjoy like trying to figure out all that information. And then like, when I take the top 16 or the top 32 of a tournament, I obviously give my opinions on it. Well, this deck was in a good position because of this reason. This deck was in a bad position because of that reason. And I really enjoy like stringing those things together. And again, I get a lot of positive feedback on the channel. So, I mean, I guess I'm giving out some helpful stuff, which is really cool. People come to my channel and they're like, wow, you helped me like learn about the game in this way. And that's really rewarding. So I'm going to keep doing it as long as people like it for sure. And as far as the player interviews, I love that stuff, man. I love giving people a platform to just like, for one, be proud of their accomplishment. And for two, just get their ideas out there. Because that's why I started my channel, to get my ideas out there. So giving people that platform is really cool.
Yeah, man, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, man. You were one of the inspirations for me to start this podcast and start this format because, like you said, you're giving these people that don't really have a platform, and I feel like, because I come from production, when I produced, I did a lot of fighting game content with a lot of fighting game players, and the problem I saw was we're not really seeing these personalities that these people have, which I feel like is important because, personalities eventually will attract people because, like you mentioned, we need those important people like the super players and Mafubajar because their personalities are attracting people and bringing more eyes to the game, which is important. And I feel like people need to understand, like, all these other top players, like, like you, Peter, Buttersworth, whatever, and now like there's a whole bunch, Marcel, everybody, and
Right.
Anthony Hernandez, like people that don't have their own channel and aren't uploading daily, like they need those, like, they should have those venues to be able to talk about it and discuss. And it's like, like I said, like you said, you are an inspiration for me to start this, to give, just give a platform, another platform for people to talk about it, And we've seen people wanting to do that, right? Frank Miller with his mailman rants for the past month has been amazing, and it's like one of the best things going on.
Yeah, dude. Like, I definitely think we need more content creators, and like, it's not even about like, oh man, I have more competition, that's a bad thing. No, we need more content creators because it gets more people invested in the game, and podcasts too. Like, I did a handful of podcasts on my channel. I don't think it was my cup of tea to host one all the time because it's very long and very long-winded, but we need way more people to do podcasts because like I love listening to podcasts, but like for me personally, it was draining to host them on top of doing everything else. But the more podcasts we can get in this game, the better. I definitely think that.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. It's super casual. Hope you're feeling that too, like how casual it is and just having fun. Just
oh man, this is awesome. This is amazing.
I'm glad, man. Thank you. So you kind of already answered my next question about getting these players, but have you had any challenges getting anybody, especially from the overseas tournaments?
Like getting the information from the tournaments, you mean?
Yeah, or like getting in contact with them, or like the players themselves.
Yeah, it can be tough sometimes. Like whenever ARG used to do tournaments, which they don't do anymore, or when PPG used to do tournaments, or they still do tournaments, they usually post the deck lists, which is super super helpful. Like I get the top 16 or top 32, and it's great. Some of the other companies like Core TCG, TAC Gaming, they get them out, but they don't get them out the next day, which is really tough. Like I know it's hard, like it's a hard turnaround. They just got done with the tournament. But as the content creation side of it, we need those things as soon as possible because if I'm reporting on a tournament like from a week ago, nobody wants to see it anymore, and that's kind of unfortunate. As far as reaching the actual players, what I try and do is I always make a post in the Facebook group saying, hey, if you topped this tournament, contact me. We'll get your deck on the channel. For one, I don't want to be like cherry picking people. Like I don't want to pick the same people all the time, or I don't want to try and get the same decks all the time because if I profile 5 Janemas in a row, nobody really wants to see that, unfortunately. But typically, it's pretty easy. The hardest thing is like setting up time zones. Like the other day, I did a video on my channel with Silk Michael, who got first place at a UK event, and he's like 6 hours, I think, behind or ahead, whatever, I forget. But that was kind of tough setup. But for the most part, if the player really wants to be on, we make it work. We definitely make it work. And that was one thing I kind of wanted to mention really quick is like, I want to keep doing this too because it would be so cool if card games got on the level of esports.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's so hard to do. Mainly, I think because card games are very slow, methodical. It's like chess. It's not quote unquote sexy to watch. You know what I mean? Like it's not always exciting. But if we have like this professional coverage, if we have like people getting their personalities out there, hopefully we'll get closer and closer as time goes on.
Yeah, dude, me and you are on the same wavelength with that, man. I feel like card games, they really can. It just needs extra oomph and that extra excitement to go along with it. Which I feel like Dragon Ball, because of the IP, is getting to that point, and
Yeah, the IP
especially
helps a lot. Yep.
yeah, for having the IP itself, and then also like commentators getting more practice and just getting better as time goes on. It's definitely helping the game a lot. So
100%.
speaking of esports, you are a part of one of the strongest teams out there in Shenron's Lair. How did that happen, and what's it like being a part of Shenron's Lair?
So how did that happen? So when I was living in Chico, like I mentioned, I was still very, very new to the game. And so being in Chico, I was like all the way north in California. And there was a pre-release event for set 3 in Fresno, which was like a 4-hour drive south.
Yeah.
I went 4 hours by myself, got an Airbnb just to play in this tournament. It was like a 100-player tournament. So it was like almost like a mini regional, even though it was just a pre-release. Like they rented out like a space for it and everything. So I went there, really wanted to play really badly, and I walk in. I'm just like trading with some people. I don't know anyone at this event, and then Shenron's Lair walks in. At the time, it was just Marcus, Caleb, Josh, and a few of the other guys. Some of them aren't on the team anymore, but it was just like the West Coast crew because they used to be only West Coast. So a few of the guys I was trading with, they were like, "Oh my god, that's Shenron's Lair." And I had no idea who Shenron's Lair was at that point. Like I didn't know about the website, I didn't know about anything. They were just a bunch of big dudes, and they were like kind of intimidating. So I was like, oh wow. And then I played against a few of them at the tournament, and that was really cool. They were actually super super nice guys. I played against Caleb and Josh, who are actually brothers. Caleb's still my teammate. Josh doesn't play anymore. He's a teacher, has a real big time job. But I miss that guy a lot. But anyways. So after that, they actually gave us a lunch break for the tournament, and I was talking to Marcus and Caleb and them, and Marcus was like, why don't you come to lunch with us? And that was just like surreal. Like that was so cool. And I obviously started to learn more about what Shenron's Lair was, became friends with them, and then when I moved back to Boston, I stayed in touch with Marcus, like getting advice from him. We were bouncing ideas off each other, things like that. And then they opened up an application for an East Coast side of the team. I applied, talked to Marcus. He said he really wanted me on the team because we obviously, kept in touch. I was a growing content creator, so it kind of, was mutually beneficial. And it's all been history from there.
Dude, that's really cool, man. That's a pretty awesome story. So, as far as the East Coast team, who's on it?
So, East Coast, we've actually grown a lot, but just off the top of my head, we've got Matthew Coombs, Richard Zapp, Pat O'Neill, Frisco Foz, Corbin Nestfetter. Those are the guys on 3XG Productions. If you guys know their Patreon, they have a really, really big Patreon in the game. They do a lot of good stuff on there. East Coast, we have Trey Faircloth. We have myself. If I'm forgetting anyone, I'm so sorry. We have Jamal Moultrie. That might be the entire East Coast. We have one guy in Australia, Jack. We have all the guys on the West Coast. We're at almost like 20 players now. We've grown quite a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though that you're a part of this team. You're still allowed to have your own content that kind of lives not really separate, but not completely Shenron's Lair, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, man, Marcus, like as a team owner and captain, like Marcus is the man. Like he's never wanted to encroach on my thing. Like he's always been supportive of it, and he's been an amazing leader for sure.
That's awesome. Sounds like the dream.
Yeah, definitely.
So, one of the things that's cool, because, to your point, like, when you see Shenron's Lair, like, for me, when I first saw them, I didn't really know. The first thing that struck out to me was their jerseys and how sick they look.
They're dope.
What was your reaction when you saw the new jerseys? Because they look rad as hell.
Dude, the new jerseys with the black dragon looks so sick. I cannot wait for Nats to rock that jersey, man. Like, it was so cool. Like, my teammates wore them at the Niagara Regional. They look dope. And it's just professional, you know what I mean? Like that's that level you need to be at for trying to get as close to esports as possible.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, Sherman's Lair is one of those teams that's really making the leaps towards that, which is pretty awesome.
We're trying our best, man.
So, a lot of other content on your channel is uh, showcasing some decks. And what is your mindset when you go into deck building? Like, do you try and find something that's like that can be meta? Do you try and find something that's anti-meta? Like, what is your mindset when you start building?
So it's really weird. So we talked a little bit before about playstyle. Like, I do feel like some people don't think playstyle exists. Some people think like you just play the best deck, you get proficient with it, and you just play. I think playstyle is very very real. Like when Broly Headed Mastery was the top deck, I couldn't play it. Like the Broly leader just cut way too much life, and I felt like vulnerable at all points. Where like skillless, when I played that for a while, I had a lot of life to work with. I could be very aggressive. I could be very defensive, and that's my kind of thing with playing the game. Is like I love when a deck gives me options. I love when I can turn the gas on, and I love when I can sit back and play defense. So that's the most thing I try and do when I build a deck. You know, like I don't. One of my good friends in this game, Danny Wynn, like he always gives me crap for this. Like I never just want to do the most broken thing in the game, like Shenron Gogeta. Like I know the deck is obscenely broken, but like I wouldn't enjoy playing it for one, and for two, like it doesn't have options, which I hate. So I always try and build a deck that is definitely can be meta, has good meta matchups, and gives me options for sure. That's where the skillless deck came from. So it could beat everything potentially. It didn't have any auto loss matchups, and it had options, which I loved.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, to your point, it's so hard, and like you hear from other players, some players don't even run the gates because they want to aggro you so hard. It's like, that's rough. But like we mentioned, you've seen a lot of decks from the past couple of years that have topped tournaments. Has there been one that's like, I cannot believe this actually topped? And then when you saw the list, you were like, how did you get so far with this list?
Man,
And it's not even throwing shade because those rogue decks can be pretty busted when no one's prepared for it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like most of the interviews I've done, like I try and give the benefit of the doubt. Like I try not to be like very very opinionated and very very egotistical, because I feel like a big problem in card games, like I noticed this in Yu-Gi-Oh, and I kind of noticed it in Dragon Ball. Like ego is a big problem. Like, oh, your deck's not the same as mine. Your deck is bad. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's a big problem. And if I look at a deck and I don't agree with it, but if it has the results to back it up, well, then, like, you got to give it some merit. You know what I mean? So, sure, there have been some lists. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there have definitely been some lists where I've looked at it and been like, okay, that's kind of questionable. Like, that's kind of weird. But, you won the event or you got second place. Like, I can't knock you for it,
It's funny coming from you, considering you've topped events with only 3 Dragon Balls and skillless.
People say that, but like the math was, I ran what was it at ARG Invitational? I ran 10 ways to get to a Dragon Ball, which is like more than a lot of people ran. I ran 4 Gokus, 3 balls, and 3 searchers, 3 Dende searchers. So I ran 10 ways, and I ran the Dendes to get more yellow.
Yeah.
And yeah, somehow still in the top 8, I still managed not to see a ball, but that's neither here nor there.
So is there a deck a leader or a deck that you feel should or has the potential to be better in the current meta right now?
That people aren't experimenting with. I mean, like I said before, we're in such a space of creativity that honestly, probably something that I can't even think of is gonna like really make waves and gnats. And like the draft box gave such great support to the game, like and no one's really playing like Borgos and Whis right now, so I think like even Golden Frieza, like set 1 Golden Frieza can make some waves. Like that deck, if it's not being checked, if people aren't running Borgos and things like that, that deck can draw a ton of cards, can make a ton of plays. That's like one, for example. Different wish leaders like Blue Dende, like that has a lot of potential, especially with like AOD. Like people haven't been playing AOD, and it is tougher to play now that like Child Wish is gone. But we have replacements for those things. Like we have Assemble a Squad and the new Boo. So those are 2 things that I think could make some waves if they go unchecked. And Nats, I think, is going to be a free-for-all with that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely very interesting the way it's looking out. Like right now everyone's talking about Broly Apes, but Nats is still almost a month away at the time of the recording. So it's like you really don't know. Do you have any idea what you're taking to Nats, or you want to keep that to the chest?
I'm not totally sure, man. Like I've been testing the typical stuff like Toa and Yeah, I personally cannot play Janemba, cannot play Shenron Gogeta. Like they're too boring for me. So out of the top three right now, it'd probably be like Toa would be my top pick. Maybe U6 as like the kind of anti-meta aggro pick. Those are two I'm definitely considering for sure.
So skillless is no go.
Oh, Skillless is
Fully
done,
retired.
man. Skillless, I love that deck to death. Let me tell you, like that leader, just the options you get in the deck are surreal. But I am so done not drawing Dragon Balls. Like it screwed me over in the Richmond event. It screwed me over at the ARG Invitational. But I can't like hate the deck because it got me to third place, which was sick. So yeah, I don't hate the deck by any means. I love it to death, but definitely time to retire it for sure.
Yeah, I feel you there, man. I felt that way about Janemba for a while. Then they come out with this tricolor stuff, and I'm like, I can't get away.
Yeah, no, the tricolor jump is cool. It gives you a lot more options for sure.
Yeah, definitely a lot more interactive than mono blue. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, out of all the cards, so you mentioned like Dropbox really helped the game a lot. Is there a card that you feel like had the most impact?
Most impact right now in the community, probably Ultra Instinct Goku. Like people just keep talking about the card. It had that stupid crazy price spike to like $400 for like 5 minutes.
I don't get it.
But no, that card's really good. I mean, it actually does give like Shenron more defensive options. So like the thing with Shenron is, it's normally very, very difficult to keep 4 energy up for a counterplay, but like Shenron can do that, keep 4 energy up, counterplay their opponent, not die, and then they can tap out for Gogeta and just win the game. Other decks, can't typically do that same kind of thing. But that's a big one. As far as other cards, like Galacannon, like kind of weird that card's like really expensive right now, but it's a really good card in red decks. Like, 1-drop counterplay, you answer like Vegeta Time Regulator. There's just so many good generic things. And like back in like, what was it? Probably set 4, set 5, like they were talking about like, oh, we don't really want a whole lot of counterplay. We don't really want like this game to be like that. But the players wanted it and they gave it to us and we're really happy about it. So it's doing really well so far for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned those prices, man. Those prices are insane. I can't not believe that there was even a listing for that. I saw that same post too.
Yeah, man, that was crazy. But now that I think they're like 50, so that's more manageable, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Dropbox pulls were pretty bad.
Yeah, man. Just a quick comment. They should have made the old SRs, like the reprint SRs. Those should have been uncommons. Like they should have downgraded those rarities just so you could pull more SRs in a box.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, honestly, I was surprised. I didn't think it was gonna be that foiling that it has now. I actually really like it a lot. I pulled at all costs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't need this, but I was like, actually, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, sometimes the star foiling is cool. Sometimes it gets on me a little bit, but like the fact that like Fearless Pan comes different foily now, it's kind of cool. Yeah, I can see that.
So you mentioned it earlier towards the beginning that new leaders are getting kind of reworked going into set 9 or whatever.
Yep.
Which are you surprised by this list by any chance?
I was pretty surprised about it. Like I did not think the community would have picked the leaders that they picked. You know what I mean? Like the hit leader was a weird one because we just got a hit leader. The SS2 Gohan one was that was kind of neat, I guess. But like I was very surprised that people really cared about it. The rest of them, like, yeah, they were cool. I mean, SS3 is, I can't believe that one got picked. And I'm very surprised Soul Striker didn't get picked.
Yeah. I mean, I know me personally, just because I troll around with my friends and I'm telling them one day I will make set 1 Beerus work. So, so I split my votes between Broly and Beerus. I was actually pretty surprised it got picked.
Yeah, me too.
Hit kind of makes sense because it's red. Hopefully it gets reworked to have the Universe 6 trait because then it will be really good.
That'd be cool.
And then Cooler, how you give Cooler support, but the leader's still ass? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have a Cooler deck on the channel, like, from back in the day, and it was just it was a burst 3 basically before bursting was even a thing. It was just like it was mill 3, overwhelm, and play Shugesh. So I mean, if it's like burst 3, draw 1, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, give it some draw power. It definitely needs it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, anytime anyone who doesn't miss this card goes over SS3, you get like a slight groan as you kind of deep breath a little bit, just me mentioning it. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on SS3, and how could they rework SS3 to not be as broken as it was?
I don't know. That's a tough one, man, because it's like a lot of people think about ways to rework it, and it just seems like unplayable. You know what I mean? Like the ramp part, maybe they won't include the ramping part. That would be a little bit better. But then like the question is, will they give it advantage on the front side, or would it be like still an awaken draw 2 leader? And then on the back side, like we've heard things like, oh, you have to discard a card for each energy you want to untap, or like you can only untap one, or your deck has to be mono blue. And those are all like decent ideas, but like half of them are like the Trunks leader that exists. What's it called? Iron Bow Trunks. So that's already been done. So as far as like reworking it, I'm pretty curious what they're gonna do. Like maybe it'll just be a ramp leader and like have no untapping. You know what I mean? That could be a way to do it. Like a more generic kind of Goku Black, maybe. I could see that being a little bit problematic though. So yeah, I mean it depends what they do, man. Like honestly, I feel like it's gonna be tough to balance it without making it trash. So I mean, I don't know. Do you have any ideas on what they might do with it?
No, I mean honestly, I was kind of similar to like what you were saying. It's like for resetting 3 is just too broken. Like in any sense of the word, no matter if you can discard a life and still resetting 3 is too broken. Like I feel like discarding a card and maybe resetting 2, because at the end of the day, like that was my problem with SS3 the whole time. It's like you literally have like your only risk you ever take is what you take out of your life if you're playing multicolor. That's it.
Right.
And if you get a black card. But even so, it's like you can play defensively and just not ramp, because no matter what, you're stuck at 6. Yep. But it's restanding 3 is just too good, especially now with the Frost Deadly Poison being a thing. No, I don't want it. I don't care.
Absolutely not, dude. That was the problem with it. Yeah, is like you could tap out for anything and just not get punished, and that was super lame.
Yeah, I feel like it would be fair if it's like untap 2, only if you're tapped out.
Maybe. Maybe.
I feel like that could be fair, but I don't know. It's still 2 energy, and that's you can still give Vegeta the Cruel and everything. Or Kaioken or whatever. It's dumb.
Yeah, I agree. There was a pretty cool idea going around, like when SS3 was like a problem, and everyone was like, "Well, why don't you should just ban SS3, and there should be a mechanic where like at the end of every turn you untap an energy, so every deck could play defense." So I was like, that'd be kind of neat. That might be kind of stupid though, but they're probably not gonna do that anymore. So there's no real reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, Gogeta got a reprint, but that's a totally other conversation. That card needs to
get banned.
Oh my goodness. So, was there a leader that you really wanted to see on this list?
In particular, I mean, Soul Striker definitely was one. That Kid Goku leader, that yellow Kid Goku leader, if they have some more like really good Bulmas, that could be a really cool leader to play around with, because it's very unique. Look at the top 10, add a Bulma, and at that time the best one was the draw 1 Bulma. Is just play it for 1 yellow, draw a card. That was pretty decent. Then they came out with like the mech Bulmas, like Explorer Bulma, and then like the mech suit Bulma, and that was a cool idea. So I would actually like for them to explore that a little bit more. But besides that, yeah, those are the 2 I'd like to see.
Yeah, Soul Striker definitely, man. That's like a fan favorite for life. Like that one. I mean, that's where everyone got introduced to the game with that starter deck. It's just too good. So so we kind of mentioned earlier a little bit about Patreon. Can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, you kind of hinted to it, but can you tell us a little bit about the Patreon grind and why it's been so important to you?
Yeah, so my thing with it is I try and let the Patreon be a side thing for the YouTube and not the other way around, because I think YouTube growth is more organic, and over time it'll just continue to grow. And obviously, if people can see things for free, it's good for everything. People come to the channel, people want to play the game, this, that, and the other thing. The Patreon serves a few roles. So, for one, like I mentioned before, I feel like I'm naturally a writer, so I'm able to get my points across very, very clearly through that. And the other thing is it helps me support the channel while I'm trying to do all these things. Obviously creating content all the time, trying to go to events, trying to get cards to actually play the game. It is an expensive hobby, when you're trying to be as dedicated as possible to it. So, like right now, the Patreon, it helps a little bit more than the YouTube channel. But over time, I think that's going to change as the game gets bigger and as my channel gets bigger. I think the YouTube is going to become the bigger thing, and the Patreon is going to be a small side set of that. And it's a way that I can get more information across to people. I only do 2 articles a week, as opposed to my 5 videos on YouTube. So people are getting that on Patreon. It's also a way that people can just kind of help the channel out. If they felt like I've helped them out, they can kind of return the favor, and in essence it helps me continue to help other people. So it's just like I'm trying to make it like one big community between the Facebook, between the YouTube, and the Patreon, all that stuff. Just trying to get as much Dragon Ball stuff out there as possible.
Yeah, of course. And, you actually hit a point that I was going to touch on, showing support to those that love the game and are doing so much for it. Because at the end of the day, if you know anything about YouTube, YouTube has its ups and downs. It'll demonetize anything for any reason it deems necessary, like for no reason at all. And, I think Patreon is very important right now, especially with the way YouTube is evolving because, like I mentioned, like YouTube has its ups and downs, but it's not like Twitch. Twitch, you can directly donate. Twitch, you can sub. You can get all these awesome things, all these awesome perks. But the problem with Twitch is it's not, and like kind of like your videos, it's not that short form content, like 20 minutes or lower. And it's also not live, it's on demand. So it's even better for the consumer, but YouTube is screwing them over, and it's important for the Patreon to kind of help support that. And so what can people expect from your Patreon that's different from the YouTube?
So on the Patreon, you get the articles, which is different than the videos. And the Patreon is always competitive stuff. Like my YouTube channel, sometimes will be opinionated. Like if a card is super broken, I'll talk about it, give a discussion about it. There's a lot of competitive stuff on the YouTube as well, but the Patreon always competitive. So if you're trying to get ready for a regional, if you're trying to get ready for nationals, the Patreon is probably where you want to be. And in my $10 and higher tiers is where people can actually get in touch with me, and I work with them through their decks. If they're in the $20 tier, we play test, and I have gotten a lot of positive feedback about that as well. So that's worked out really well. But even just for the $1 or $5 a month, you're getting all those competitive articles. You can comment on them, and I'll get back to you on that as well. Again, always competitive stuff. Like someone asking me about an intricate play line or intricate play tree, and I talk through it with them as much as I can. And then in the higher tiers, we're on Discord, we're talking all the time. So I do try and keep it personal. And actually, what I've done is for the $20 tier, which is my highest tier, I've actually capped it at 10 players because I don't want to spread myself too thin. Obviously, I could be making more money, but it's not about that. It's more about making sure that I can actually allocate my time correctly to the people who are, who are paying for it essentially, and who are really helping me out a lot. So I've actually done that so I don't spread myself out too thin.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's good. I feel like, especially with Patreon, when you're able to give those people that really want to support you and show all that love, all that, the highest tiers. And how do you play test with them? Do you do untap? Do you do webcam? What is your ideal?
Yeah, so actually no webcam. I can't do that with real life cards. To me, it's just it's too difficult. But as far as the other thing goes, I let the player decide if they want to do untap or octagon. I'm able to use both, so I pretty much let them pick that for their convenience, and we go from there.
Nice. Have you found any difficulties with octagon? I don't know. I don't know. Octagon's so hard for me, and I'm really glad you're able to make it work. It's just, I don't know, it's so difficult.
I like it a lot, man. Octagon to me is it's more clean. It runs really smooth. Untap is it's in browser, so sometimes it can be a little buggy for me. Just the images are more clear on Octagon. I like that that universal background is really nice.
That's true.
Untap is definitely way more convenient for sure.
Mm. So so obviously, there's been a lot of controversy, if you will, recently with Patreon and the Dragon Ball community, because for whatever reason people just don't get it. And it boggles my mind why they don't get it. What do you usually say to those people?
So there's a few different things. One is oh, I'm not paying for that because I can tell you X, Y, Z, and this is okay. For one, you don't have to pay for it. That's totally cool. I'm not forcing anyone to pay for anything. I'm a huge believer in free market. If a product works for you, you pay for it. If the product's not for you, you don't have to pay for it. That's totally fine. And the thing with YouTube is especially when you start out, and I'm still definitely in the starting out phase. So when you're first starting out, it's unpaid work, but it is work. You know what I mean? You guys see a 10-minute video, takes me 1 to 2 hours to create the video. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I don't think people get. The other thing too is people on Patreon are oh my god, why are you trying to turn this into a job? You shouldn't be able to make your hobby into a job. And I kind of disagree with that to an extent. I think if you're overcharging for things, I think if you're not providing consistent content, I don't think you should necessarily be rewarded for that. But on the other hand, it'd be like a dream of mine if I can do Dragon Ball Super content full time, because one, I'm growing the community, two, I'm doing something I love, three, it's work I enjoy. So that'd be super sick. Obviously, I'm nowhere near that right now, like nowhere near it. But if I can keep growing it and keep, helping the game out in the process, it would be a win-win for everything, because I'm still doing the free content on YouTube, and I want to continue to do that. But like you said before, like YouTube does not do its content creators many favors, unfortunately. So we're trying to make it work, man. And like I don't think people will sometimes get how much time and work goes into a video. And I'm not asking for like pity. I'm not asking for
of course,
pandering. I love doing the work, but sometimes when people get on my case about the Patreon, it's like, dude, like, you ever heard of like, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, like I said, I totally get it, and I don't understand. I really just don't understand. I feel like you need to be a part of it and put in that work, because, like we mentioned earlier, you're going to school, you're making videos, you're contacting people, you're writing articles, you're playtesting with people, you're going over discussions over deck lists and how to do different plays. So much is going on. It does, like, just shut the hell up. You don't have to say, if you don't want to sign up, don't sign up. But you don't have to roast someone for just trying to get a little bit off from all the work they put in. I don't know. It's just, it always bugged me. It doesn't make any sense.
I get it, man. I try my best. And it's really funny. I still have people who don't like me because back when Gogeta 7 came out, I made like a lot of doomsday videos, like, oh, this card's gonna break the game, this card, this and that, and I was wrong. Like, I've admitted it so many times that I was wrong, and specifically from that experience, I've made my content in a way that I don't make predictions like that anymore. Like, if a card comes out, seems busted, I will give my opinion on it, but I will not make any implications about how it's gonna impact the format. I actually just wait for the results, and then like just because like with Gogeta 7, I was wrong. And I tried to do the same thing with like Kaioken. People were like, "Oh, that card's super stupid, super busted." It's really good right now. It's doing well in the format, but it's not like it's not tier 0 or anything like that. So now, specifically from that, I try and wait to make my opinions. But I still have people who don't like me because of those videos I made back then, and they haven't watched any of the recent content. So if you're one of those guys watching or listening, I'd recommend you give my recent stuff a shot. I think you might like it.
Let me get this straight. You got roasted for being right just because you were right early. Look, I will say it for you. Gogeta 7 is an ass card. So many people know it. It's a card that is busted. The fact that you have a card that has deflect and barrier, has 30k, resets your hand, no. It is 100 times worse than Cell, because you can get rid of Cell, you can choose what you keep. No.
You're absolutely right, dude.
How did people not see that this card was busted? Like, I don't know. I guess they didn't put 2 together with Shenron or whatever, but still, it's like, come on, dude.
Man, I mean, the deck is not unbeatable by any means, but it is still.
Of course.
It feels so bad to lose to that. Like, I personally hate losing to, like, if I get outplayed, totally cool with that. If I lose to a situation where I had no control, that feels really, really bad.
Yeah. I had a friend who was, like, we're seeing all these big boss monster plays before now. But before, he would play Gogeta 7 and then sit there, and then next turn play the old school UI Goku. The 7-drop where you can't activate, you can't combo.
Yep.
And give not a good time.
Yeah, man, like, wishing with boss monsters is pretty busted. Like, a lot of people are obviously talking about World Peace. When the whole Child's Wish thing was going on, I was also making small comments about World Peace. Is like, well, World Peace is basically Child's Wish for big guys, and it's just as generic and can be just as broken. Like, it wasn't broken at that time, but now I think we're seeing the effects of World Peace. Like, you can always drop Gogeta 7 on turn 4, even in a normal deck, but like World Peace and having the ability to drop like a Gogeta 7 and a Kaioken in the same turn, that's pretty stupid.
Yeah, especially when you see things like Gogeta, Kaioken, and then Victory Strike.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid.
Doesn't make any sense. So you kind of brought up an interesting point that I want to talk about. So when it came to Child's Wish and Child's Wish and World Peace being banned, do you feel like they deserve to be banned? Because me personally, I don't think Child's Wish was that much of a problem. Obviously, it had its flaws. Me personally, I feel like both of those cards could have been fixed with an easy game mechanic where you can only activate Wish once per turn.
Hmm.
I feel like that would have balanced them out. They didn't have to be banned because Child Wish made so many other decks playable again. It made the OG Broly chain viable. It made Veggies viable again. It honestly made for a super diverse meta. It's just unfortunate that for obvious reasons people would abuse it in like Super Shenron and stuff, and that's what caused it to be banned. But do you feel like those cards deserve to be banned, or?
I actually do 100%, just because, like, actually what you said too with the once per turn thing, I actually did a video on my channel where I played a game of Super Shenron with once per turn Child's Wish, and I still skipped turn on turn 4 consistently. Like,
Wow.
it was still pretty busted. So I actually, like I said before, I tried to actually put in the research, and it showed that it was still pretty busted. But the problem with Child's Wish was, like, just way too generic. Like, in my opinion, in this game, when there have been really bad formats like Mecha Frieza, like Storm, and Super Shenron, the problem is things being too generic. Like Child's Wish brought back way too many different battle cards, like way too many. Storm was not even one broken card. Like every card in Storm was just generically good. You know what I mean? Like the leader was amazing. The 1-drops were amazing. The 2-drops were amazing. Untapping Trunks was amazing. Senzu Bean, super good. So I think when you have things that are too generic, it causes a problem. And like for example, with World Peace, like there's Plea for Salvation, which is a green version of World Peace, only brings back green battle cards. That totally cool. Like the green battle card pool is not broken enough to make that card broken. But when things are too generic, I think there is a bit of a problem for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, definitely. Like to bring up a good point. You know, it. Someone will find a way to break it, even if it's just limited once per turn.
Yeah, and that was my thing with World Peace. Was like, you know, this card eventually can definitely be busted. And when the ramp deck was created, that was, in my opinion, where it was busted. It's not as busted as Super Shenron. It's not tier 0 like Super Shenron, but it is, in my opinion, pretty dumb.
Yeah. What deck? What? So you know, we've seen a lot of busted tier 0 decks. Which one, in your opinion, was the most degenerate and really made the game unfun?
Man, I don't. It's really weird. Like, so Mecha Frieza, I think, was probably the most degenerate. Like, turn 1 Awaken, 15 cards in hand, like Shugesh, that was insane. But the mirror match was actually kind of fun. Like, there was interactivity there. Super Shenron, in my opinion, was very dice roll dependent, and like you could win in the mirror match with skill, but like skipping turn, that is like a cardinal rule in card games that you cannot make cards that skip turns viable. Like that is the probably the most unfun play experience I've ever had in this game, and I think a lot of people would tell you the same thing. Like, so for most unfun, probably Super Shenron. Most degenerate, probably Mecha Frieza.
Even more than SS3, not even up there.
No, SS3 was stupid, but like that was a situation where like you could take any deck, even like Hirudegarn Storm. Like if you put the SS3 leader with it, it's arguably just better. You know what I mean? Like it's just arguably the best leader in the game. Even though with the thing with SS3, there was a lot of different builds for it, so that kind of diversified it. But Super Shenron and Mecha, not that much diversity at all.
Yeah, that's fair. And, you know, as we start to wind down here, you know, because it took a lot of your time, and once again, I really do appreciate all of it.
No problem,
now,
man. I'm having a blast.
Oh, I'm glad, man. I'm glad. So, we saw, this is, from the time of this recording, you know, we saw Marcel on the Mailman rant this week. Did you see it? Did you catch it?
I heard some things, but I didn't actually watch it
yet. Well, he actually challenged Shenron's Lair to a match at Nats, team versus team. How do you have you guys talked about that, or?
Yeah, we have talked about it actually, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna accept it. Just just for like the integrity of the game, it's gonna be pretty fun. As far as what they've been talking about, I don't think I'm playing in that in particular, but I do think that is in the works. West.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, obviously, it will be exciting to see the best players from the best teams go head to head. Now, so when it comes to like how do you feel about team play? Like, do you enjoy it as much as you enjoy like the individual, like like team wars and things like that?
I love it, man. Like when I went to Chicago with my teammates, with Marcus and Jose, like that was so much fun. Like there's the point where you can coach your teammates, you can talk through them with plays, but honestly, like, when all three of you are playing, that doesn't happen too much, but it's just something about like the camaraderie, like sitting next to your teammate and just like playing and knowing that like they need you to win, you need them to win, like you need to be a true team. That it's just really, really fun. It adds a different element to the game, which I really like. And I really like team format in this game where you cannot play the same cards as your teammates. Like that was one of the reasons I like Shugesh. Like, even though Cronoa existed, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people don't agree with this, but in my opinion, like Shugesh was a really fun deck to play in teams because you actually could resolve it a fair amount of the time. But obviously, it wasn't great for the game. But I do like that aspect of it, not being able to play the same cards as your teammates.
That's really cool. I remember my first Team Wars. It was interesting. It was actually 5v5.
Oh, wow.
And there weren't any limits. You just had to play a different leader. The team that ended up winning that and just like knocked everyone the hell out was every single player was playing Storm, the same deck with a different leader.
Oh, wow.
It's like you had U7 Vegeta from Ultimate Box. You had SS3. You had a Rudigarn. You had Storm Trunks, and it was like,
that's pretty dope, actually.
Oh man, it was dope to see, but it was like, you don't want to be behind that.
That's a little degenerate.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. Do you want to give any last minute shout outs? Want to plug anything?
Yeah, man. I mean, if you guys want to find me on YouTube, youtube.com/CrossroadTCG. You want to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/CrossroadTCG. Man, thank you so much for having me on. Shout out to Sherman's Lair. Shout out to my boys in Boston. Shout out to my boys in California. Shout out to this community. This community is absolutely incredible. Like, I love doing what I do because of you guys.
All right, with that, man, thank you so much for joining me, Joey. I really do appreciate it. Remember to follow and subscribe to his YouTube because it is awesome. Like I said, so much competitive content. Sign up for his Patreon because, like you mentioned earlier, he'll give you that 1v1 as long as he has space.
You want to beat me, that's the way to do it, man.
Once again, thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will catch you later.